Hello there. What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Imperial Assault and the end of physical product, at least for the time being. So, if you're not familiar already, during the Star Wars Celebration FFG panel, one person who got up to ask a question asked them a really tough question. They said, hey, well, what can you say to Imperial Assault players? I feel like nothing else is coming out for this game. And, in a typical kind of dodge, I would say, at least in the positive spin, they're like, hey, we've got more support for the app coming, more map rotations, and more, so the game is still supported. And they tried to go on. He's like, yeah, but and he wouldn't let them get away with it, and just kept hammering them with questions until he basically forced Andrew Navarro to come out and say, no, dude, we have no physical product planned at this time. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I also want to remind you guys there's still time left to enter the giveaway for a $25 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. And you can enter to win. We're going to be announcing the winner for that in a couple of days with a new giveaway shortly thereafter, which is going to be very, very large. So make sure you stay tuned for the big giveaway coming after that. So even if you don't win this one, maybe you win the next one. Who knows? So what is, what's so significant about this news? So, well, I'll tell you. Imperial Assault, great game. I enjoyed the heck out of it, but didn't get to play it as much, primarily because campaign stuff doesn't work for me as well. I can't always meet up with the same group of people on a set time every week or every other week or whatever, so campaigns are harder for me to do. The app kind of helps that. You can kind of run a solo campaign. Ended up not being like a game that I could really play as much as I want to, but I always tell people, as far as like FFG, like core sets and boxes are concerned, the amount of value and gameplay hours you're going to get out of, and this is one of the expansions, but out of like the Imperial Assault core set is just tremendous. I have definitely enjoyed the game a lot. I enjoyed Skirmish, I enjoyed all of that, but I feel like when Legion came out, it kind of killed it because everybody swore up and down, and I even speculated that Imperial Assault was dead. Turns out we were wrong. They did come out with another expansion with Thrawn and some more stuff, which was pretty cool. I actually did not get that expansion, which is surprising to me, or at least all of the expansions for it. Like, I didn't get all of the blister packs, and I decided kind of to cut my losses, and I just got so many. Like, when Legion was coming out, I've taken all the rest of these boxes and I've just thrown all of my minis into them. So I've got a lot of extra minis, to kind of tide me over until, like Bosk here, to tide me over until we get all the rest of the Legion stuff. And I probably will hold on to these forever. I don't know, what I'm going to do with them, but what does the lack of support or lack of physical product mean? Well, here's a couple of things. There's reason to be worried. There's reason to stay optimistic. So I'm going to talk about both of those. First off, I'm going to talk about the negative first. They said, they didn't say like we have something in the pipe or be patient, people. We don't have. They said we have no plans for any more physical product at this time. That's, for a lot of games, that sounds like a death sentence. I don't think it is in this case, but it sounds that way. That's one of the worst things you can expect to hear. It wasn't even like Alex Davey kind of brushed the question off at Adepticon when he was asked about it. He's like, oh, I don't know anything about Imperial Assault. I'm sorry, I don't have anything to say. I don't know anything about. Then that was that. That's smart, kind of sidestepping the issue. Andrew Navarro, however, is not really in the position to claim ignorance, so he had to. And good on him for at least answering the question and being honest that we have nothing planned at this time. Now, that's pretty bad because the game has kind of been on life support for a while now. There's, like with any game, if you're into it, especially if this is your favorite game, you want more stuff to come out. Armada fans know this very, very well. X-Wing fans really haven't had this kind of a problem. X-Wing fans have, at best, had to wait a couple of weeks after one wave came out for news of the next wave. The slowest X-Wing ever had a release was right around when 2.0 got announced, and it made perfect sense why there was a slight slowdown in product release. And they really didn't even miss a beat there because on your last wave of 1.0, it also had 2.0 options. So you had, they had like overlap in the same, So X-Wing has really never had that problem. Legion has never had that problem at all. Legion is every month, couple expansions every month. It's been insane for Legion. So only some Fantasy Flight games have really known the problem of not having physical product and not knowing if there's a future. Armada's had this a couple of times. So as a big, if you follow me for a while, I'm a big Armada player. But Imperial Assault was kind of a unique type of game because it's got that story aspect to it. It's got that campaign aspect to it. It's got that little bit of RPG aspect to it. It's like that hybrid RPG tabletop dungeon crawl. It's got a lot of cool things that are going on for it. And then with the app supporting it, it's give you a whole different way to play also. But the competitive side is for skirmish, and that's where people kind of want new products because the skirmish, meta doesn't usually change unless, of course, there is something to change the meta. And one of the things that does that is a new expansion. And they did that, recently with like having extra cards for all of the units that were underpowered from like the first couple of releases, and they try to do a lot of that. So it's nice that they did come out with more product, but there are still characters that people want, like Yoda, for example. And I think we still have some bounty hunters that didn't quite make it into the game yet. So there's room for some other characters. There's room for, I think people wanted like a Callus, and there's some room for some other fairly important characters from Star Wars Rebels as well. So I think there's definitely room for more characters, and I think Imperial Assault is not completely done yet. So now let me talk about the positive. And this may not be much for the Imperial Assault lovers out there. Those people who are big fans of Imperial Assault probably have every right to be a little upset at the, not just the lack of support, but I think the lack of transparency. At least I can call that up until this point, because they finally came out and said it. It would have been nicer if they had kind of given a timeline. And that's, I think, one of my big criticisms. I'll talk about that at the end. So on the bright side, the game is not unsupported anymore. It's not what we call end of life, where they're saying, this game has hit its sunset and we're discontinuing it. It's not at that point. As a matter of fact, it does have a future because they're going to continue to support it on multiple ways. First off, with tournament support. We already know they're going to have a Worlds 2020 because in the article they talked about whoever won this Worlds was going to get an invite to the next Worlds 2020. So that was like basically confirmation. We will also have a World Tournament next year, and presumably the year after that, depending on if they decide to change the way prize support goes for winners. So you're going to continue to be supported through tournament support, and that's cool. The other thing that they can do is more map rotations. We just had a new map rotation come out for Imperial Assault, so that's one way to support organized play is with new map rotations, new tournament kits, things like that. But the other way that this game is still being supported is through the app, and that is not really a big deal for skirmish competitive players, but it is a big deal for campaign players. And I feel like that's where they're trying to target is that campaign audience. I'll be honest with you. Imperial Assault has a lot of product out there. There are a ton of expansions. There are several big box expansions. There are some other smaller box expansions. And there's a ton of blister packs. And honestly, it's a really healthy amount of product for any type of board game. Most board games that are successful will have somewhere between 1 and 3 expansions. That's kind of like an average kind of number. And for a lot of them, it's just one, if any. And this one had dozens and dozens of expansions. Now granted, maybe only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major expansions, and everything else was like blisters underneath that. But still, that's a pretty darn good amount. So there's a lot of content in this game that they can support with the app. There's a lot of campaigns that they can support with the app, and the campaigns you can play those competitively against the computer. So I think what the app has given to this game was like my number one complaint was that, hey, I don't want to have to, go up against one other person because, hey, I own the game, so that means I always have to play the Imperial player. So the app was really fun for that, and I think that was a great thing. And I think that's the strength that Imperial Assault has that most of their other Star Wars games lack, is that narrative campaign aspect. Obviously, the Star Wars RPG has that, and also if you play the Star Wars RPG, you might also play Imperial Assault because it has so many miniatures, especially for a lot of the stuff involving the scum and underworld. If you want those to populate your tabletop experience for an RPG, you're really not going to find those in too many other places unless you're going like really old, like Wizards of the Coast and maybe third, aftermarket stuff. So, I think that's the focus is for that campaign, that app-supported stuff, because they're going to continue to make stuff for the app. Because also that drives sales of their physical product too, because all the stuff that's on the shelf right now, hey, well, there's a new campaign and it's going to use the Return to Hoth expansion. Well, let me go make sure I pick up a copy of the Return to Hoth expansion. So, but supporting the app helps support the game as far as the campaign is concerned. But for Skirmish, the best you're going to get for support, it looks like for me, is maybe some tournament kits and new map rotations. Now, new map rotations can impact the meta, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not expecting that to completely appease people. People want more product. They want new units for their armies to change up their army building, because a new map rotation might be a slight shift in the way you're building your armies, but it's not going to be fundamentally as big as a whole new expansion would be, especially a big box expansion with all of its blister packs. That's a big meta shift, and that's really exciting, and that gets everybody super excited. And there's still a lot of things that people want. So now, long story, like at the end of the tunnel, is that they can always come back and add more to Imperial Assault. The fact that they didn't say it's discontinued or it's over is a very promising sign. That means they're keeping it alive deliberately for a future time when they can make more product. They're deliberately holding it in reserve in a spot where they can deliver more product. It's like somebody saying, "Hey, are you going to eat that pie?" No, I'm saving my pie for later. I want to put it in the fridge, and I want to get some more whipped cream because we're out of Cool Whip, and I need to put some more whipped cream on my some more Cool Whip on my pumpkin pie because I'm going to eat it later. That means we're not eating it now, but we're going to eat it later. So that's what I believe is likely going to be the case for Imperial Assault. It could go, it's 50-50. It could go either way. They may discontinue it at some point, but I think there's a very good chance that we could see more Imperial Assault. It'll just be in the distant future. So what would they do for Imperial Assault? Granted, they could probably come out with a Clone Wars campaign for Imperial Assault. They could also come out with a sequel trilogy campaign for Imperial Assault. I think it's more likely at this point to see something along the lines of a sequel trilogy campaign, or even like maybe Resistance, somewhere along that timeline, because of the fact that Clone Wars is coming to the other games. And what they don't want to do, because like one of the pitfalls is that Legion was so similar to this game in scale that in many ways people saw Legion as the Imperial Assault killer. I'll admit I kind of fell into that campaign, into that crowd, and I was just like, well, what do I need? What do I need Imperial Assault for anymore if I got Legion? As Legion, like I was more interested in the skirmish aspect of Legion, or in Imperial Assault than the campaign. So for me, it was like, well, this is a no-brainer. I'll just switch over to Legion. And I think a lot of people did that, and I think that's one of the things that really hurt the game, hurt Imperial Assault, is because so many people said, well, I've got Legion now, I don't need IA anymore. Plus, the minis are better in Legion, so it's the total IA killer. And that's what happened. And to be honest, the same thing happened to Rune Wars. Legion crushed 2 games, in my opinion. But in its defense, Legion's been hugely popular and shows no signs of slowing down. So, I guess it's a double-edged sword. I think as a player of Legion, I'm happy about that. But as being sympathetic to Imperial Assault, I get that. So that's basically where we're at right now. I think that there's a very good chance they could continue to come out with Imperial Assault stuff in the future. Once Legion becomes stable and starts to slow down a little bit, where something like this won't be seen as a competitor. Like maybe it's like an invasion of Starkiller Base, Imperial Assault, a whole new big box expansion, might be even a new core set that could be a new entry point into the game for other people. Something like that might happen. Or maybe just one other set of blister packs. Because here's the thing, they did it with Descent. Descent had nothing for years and years and years, but they didn't say Descent was dead. They didn't kill Descent. They did announce the end of Rune Wars. They did announce the end of Android Netrunner. They do announce the end of games when they're no longer supported. All the 40k games, right? When there's a reason to say this game is done, we're not doing any more of it, they'll tell you. They have not said that for Imperial Assault, so it's not totally dead, but it is definitely on the back burner indefinitely right now. Definitely indefinitely. Does that even make sense? I'm thinking about pumpkin pie now with some more Cool Whip. So got dessert on the brain. That's for sure. All right, guys. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, and it's kind of a bummer for everybody out there who was really hoping to get more Imperial Assault stuff. I apologize to be the bringer of bad news, But if you're really following Imperial Assault, you've probably heard about this already. So I just wanted to talk about it, throw my 2 cents in there. There is still hope, so stay optimistic. It's just the end of physical product for the foreseeable future. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.